The hunt for Pablo Escobar, the Colombian drug lord, ended today.
It was chaos in Colombia today as mourners filled the streets of Medellin for the funeral of Pablo Escobar. Police bullets finally put the world's most notorious drug thug out of business.
I was standing on the ledge outside my window on the 9th floor of my apartment, washing the windows, and my phone rang. So I climbed back in, answered it, and a friend that I worked with called to tell me that they had just shot and killed Pablo Escobar. My phone was ringing, and I just figured I'd ignore it and they'd call me back or whatever later, and it just kept ringing and ringing and ringing, and then it stopped, and then it started ringing again, and I figured it might have been something important, so I climbed inside, went over and picked up the phone, and there was a friend of mine who was from Boston, who also worked at the school I was at. He taught high school, and he was like, "Turn on the TV, quick, turn on the TV. They just shot Pablo Escobar." It was, pretty shocking, and then within minutes, normally there's so much noise with horns blowing and traffic and everything on the streets, and all of a sudden it just got quiet, except for, some voices yelling, and I was up on the 9th floor. I looked out my window, and it was just amazing to see all the traffic stopped and all the people out of their cars, and it was pretty impressed with the whole thing. It's something I'll never forget. It was November 2nd, 1993, and I had just moved to Colombia that fall. I lived on 67th Street in Bogota, Colombia, Calle 67, and I was teaching at the American International School there called Colegio Nueva Granada. I had worked at other international schools in Latin America, in Guatemala and Venezuela, and I had just accepted the job in Bogota. So I was teaching 4th grade, and when I went back to school on the Monday, it was the talk of the whole school as well as the whole town. Having only lived there for several months at the time of this event, I spent most of my days just exploring the city and new places. This was on a weekend, and it was one of the few weekends that I didn't travel outside of the city. I'd usually go take a bus to some part of town I didn't know and just walk around and get to know what was there, look up interesting places to see. During the evenings after school and on the weekends, I would just travel around the city trying to find new places, different markets that were really interesting to go, to shopping and buy food and just to buy essentials. I was always looking for a different plant shop where I could buy plants. I had a lot of them in my room to help filter out some of the pollution that was in the city. I kept my windows closed a lot, except for when I had to clean them, like that day. I was just trying to get acclimated to the new city and the new living conditions and the new school and the classroom. I had been familiar with Latin culture, but some of the language was different, just different words for things, different colloquialisms, and it was a good way to expand my vocabulary in Spanish, learning different words for different things and that were labeled differently in other countries and other parts of Latin America. Whenever I had communication with my family, I had lived in Latin America for so long that it was almost like home to me. And some of my parents or my sister would ask, "When are you coming home?" Like, I am home. When am I coming to visit? Because I lived most of the year there teaching, and then I would come home at Christmas, usually for a couple weeks, and then come home in the summers. But generally speaking, when I was back in the United States, I missed Latin America. When I was in Latin America, I missed some of the conveniences, but mostly I just missed my family, and so that's why I would, communicate through letters, correspondence, and occasional phone calls. Usually it was my mom that would call me on occasion, or wrote to me the most, and she took care of any business things I needed done in the United States. And then my sister would call just to fill me in on all the family gossip. A lot of the time I would communicate interesting events, things that had happened either with my students at school, funny things, or things about the places that I'd go visit on the weekends, and what the bus rides were like, and about the traffic and just life pretty much in general. But they weren't all that interested in about my life there so much as just, when I was going to come visit. So even a lot of the pictures that I took and photo albums full of stuff, this was before they had digital photography, and they, never really wanted to look at the photo albums or anything. They were just glad I was home. She would just ask how I was doing, if I needed anything, or, just wanted to make sure I was safe more than anything, because you heard all kinds of things about life in Colombia on the news in the United States, which was not real flattering. And after the news of Pablo Escobar's death broke, not only in Colombia, but in the United States and around the world, within hours, my mom and my sister both called me to see if I was okay, to make sure I was safe, as if, it would have caused some sort of danger in the country because he was killed. When Pablo Escobar was shot, it was sort of a period of limbo, because you didn't know what was going to happen. Everybody, some people were celebrating, the government was celebrating, and then somebody else took over and just relocated the headquarters to another city in Cali. So, and as a result, there were more bombings, there were more attacks on government facilities and areas around the country that in retaliation for killing him.